For thousands of years, it's just been sitting there, out in the middle of the scorching Egyptian desert. A monument that seems to laugh at time, at storms, at everything we think we know. We like to believe our modern science can solve any puzzle, right? But when it comes to the Great Pyramid of Giza, it feels like the more we learn, the deeper the mystery actually gets. Okay, let's dive right in.
So let's just start with a number that's, well, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. 5.75 million tons. Now, to put that into perspective for you, that is more than 11 times the weight of the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building on the planet today. It's not just a structure, it's a literal mountain of stone, and every single piece was meticulously placed.
And that immediately brings up the big one, the question that has just baffled historians, engineers, you name it, for centuries. How on earth did they do this? With no cranes, no heavy machinery, how did an ancient civilization pull off something that we would seriously struggle to replicate even with all our technology today?
Yeah, this is so much more than just a pile of old rocks. It's a genuine, enduring enigma. And what's so fascinating is that our most advanced technology, the stuff that should be giving us all the answers, is actually making the mystery even deeper. I mean, just think about it for a second. This thing has watched empires rise and completely crumble. It was considered ancient history even to the Romans. And still, after all this time, its deepest secrets, like how it was built and maybe even why, are still locked away tight inside those massive stone walls. To really truly appreciate the mystery here, you have to get a sense of the sheer scale of the engineering. So let's dig into some of the numbers behind this thing, because honestly, they are just mind-bending. It all starts with the number of stones. We're talking about an estimated 2.3 million individual blocks. Every single one had to be quarried, transported, shaped, and then lifted into place with just breathtaking precision. And we're not talking about small bricks here. The average stone weighed about 2.5 tons. But some of them, these massive granite beams way up in the King's Chamber, weighed up to 80 tons. That's about the same weight as a modern locomotive. And get this. Those heaviest granite blocks, they came from a quarry that was nearly 800 kilometers away. Just try to picture that, moving 80-ton blocks over that kind of distance. It's an absolutely staggering puzzle all on its own.
And this is where the genius behind it all just becomes mind-boggling. The pyramid is aligned almost perfectly to true north, south, east, and west, a feat that is incredibly hard to do even with a compass. Inside, it somehow maintains this constant cool temperature, almost like a natural air conditioner. And you have to remember, originally it was covered in polished white limestone that would have shone like a beacon in the sun, and it was topped with a golden capstone. And as if that's not enough, some researchers even think its dimensions are a precise scale model of our planet. The level of knowledge they must have had it's just staggering.
So, okay, the how is a massive question mark, but what about the why? I mean, why go to all this unbelievable trouble? The mainstream theory is the one we all know, but trust me, it's not the only one. And this brings us to the great debate. Was this thing a tomb, or was it something else entirely? Now, the most accepted theory, the one you'll find in most textbooks, is that the pyramid was a tomb for the pharaoh Khufu. And look, it makes a lot of sense when you look at the history. Egyptian burial structures clearly evolved. They started out with these simple rectangular tombs called mastabas. Then, this brilliant architect, Imhotep, had the idea to stack them on top of each other, creating the first step pyramid. And from there, a pharaoh named Snufru perfected the design, creating the first true smooth-sided pyramids. That's what led directly to the Great Pyramid at Giza. You can see the progression.
But this is where that nice, neat story gets a little messy. For starters, no mummy, no body was ever found inside. All we found was an empty stone box. And that has opened the door to some pretty wild alternative ideas, like the power plant theory. This was proposed by an engineer named Christopher Dunn. He argues that the incredibly complex internal structure is just total overkill for a simple tomb. Instead, he points to the materials, like all the granite that's rich in quartz. Quartz has something called piezoelectric properties. It creates an electric charge under pressure. He suggests the pyramid was actually a machine designed to harness the Earth's natural energy. It's a wild idea, I know, but it's strangely similar to theories that Nikola Tesla himself was working on centuries later. It just goes to show how many questions that simple tomb theory leaves unanswered.
Okay, so if we can't be 100% sure why it was built, can we at least figure out how?
this is the second great mystery. How did they physically lift and place millions of tons of stone with that kind of precision? Let's take a look at the leading theories.
People have come up with a lot of different ideas. The most common one you'll hear is about a giant external ramp that just got bigger and bigger as the pyramid grew. Another really compelling theory suggests the ramp was actually built inside the pyramid, spiraling its way up. But, none of these theories fully explain every single challenge. However, one key piece of the puzzle, how they move those massive blocks across the desert sand, might have a surprisingly simple solution.
So the whole issue comes down to friction. If you try to pull a multi-ton block on a sledge across dry sand, the sand just piles up in front and it's nearly impossible. But physicists discovered something amazing. If you add just the right amount of water, it makes the sand rigid and it cuts the pulling force you need by half, 50%. And the best part? We actually have proof. There's an ancient tomb painting that clearly shows a worker pouring liquid in front of a sledge that's carrying a huge statue. It's just a beautifully simple, elegant solution to a colossal problem.
So even with these clever solutions like wet sand, the big picture is still really incomplete. And believe me, the story is far from over. Today, we're using technology that the builders couldn't have even dreamed of to peer inside the pyramid's deepest, darkest secrets.
We're using things like cosmic ray imaging and tiny robots, and we're finding what look like hidden chambers and voids that have been sealed shut for 4,500 years. These little robotic cameras have crawled up these narrow shafts and found mysterious little doors and strange symbols painted by the original workers. There's even new research suggesting there might be a vast network of passages underneath the whole Giza plateau. It seems like every time we find a new clue, it just opens up a dozen new questions.
Which really leaves us with this final, incredible thought. Was this thing, this unparalleled feat of engineering, done with simple tools, brilliant math, and just immense human effort? Or are we looking at evidence of something more, a lost technology, maybe a forgotten science that allowed the ancient Egyptians to do what seems impossible? The Great Pyramid does not give up its secrets easily, and for now, it remains history's greatest enigma.